And when I tell you that my jaw was on the floor for about 70% of the film, is not even an exaggeration. Like, holy crap. The film really doesn't turn the camera away from all the brutality. I'm really surprised that this has been rated 15 in the UK, because I felt like it should have been an 18. It's so violent and so brutal. So if you've got a weak stomach, maybe skip this one. Hello and welcome back to the Film Stories channel. We're here today to talk about The Long Walk, based on a Stephen King novel, which he wrote under the pen name Richard Buckman, and it was released in 1979, and it's taken this long to bring it to the big screen, but it was worth the wait. It was so worth the wait. The film is directed by Francis Lawrence, and if that name rings a bell, it would be because he's directed most of the Hunger Games films, and he's been very good at it. He's also done Constantine and I Am Legend, and a couple of films that we won't talk about because they're not very good. But The Long Walk is essentially about a long walk. I mean, what else is there? It sees a large group of boys enter a contest in this dystopian version of the United States. They are doing it to get themselves out of these financial struggles, as Mark Hamill's Major puts it, because there's apparently an epidemic of laziness. Not gonna lie, that sounds like something another person from our own world would say, but we won't go into that. Anyway, so 100 boys enter this contest and they literally just have to walk. Just walk as long as they can until there's only one left. And if they step off the road, if they stop, if they walk under the pace of 3 miles per hour, they will get their ticket. In other words, they will die. They will get shot in the head, which is delightful. Now, Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson star in the film. They are very much the heart and soul of the film, but there's also really great turns from Charlie Plummer and Ben Wang. And this film is probably the biggest surprise I've seen this year. I went into the film thinking, oh, this is going to be quite good. The trailers look good. I really like Francis Lawrence. And when I tell you that my jaw was on the floor for about 70% of the film, is not even an exaggeration. Like, holy crap. The film really doesn't turn the camera away from all the brutality. I'm really surprised that this has been rated 15 in the UK, because I felt like it should have been an 18. It's so violent and so brutal. So if you've got a weak stomach, maybe skip this one. But honestly, all the violence kind of works for the film. There's obviously a lot of horror films like the Saw franchise, which I love, by the way, that use the violence as this kind of like spectacle. Like, you go in and you've got these horrific scenes that are almost trying to compete with each other, trying to make it as horrible and gory as possible. But here, all that violence really works for the film and its story, because it is so inherently part of that story. So it's definitely, even the scenes that just really kind of had me like wincing, which is, I don't remember the last time I did that. Like, this film is so thoroughly disturbing on another level. Maybe it's because it's kids. These are essentially really young boys. There's one that they're like, you can't be older than 16. Like, these are essentially children who are forced, well, not forced, it's completely voluntary, but it's also kind of, they're trapped in these situations where this really presents a way to get out, because they can, if they win, they can ask for anything. Absolutely anything. So, you know, even if they choose to do it, you know, why wouldn't you do it, I suppose? Because at that moment, you don't have anything to lose. If you die on it during the trip, is that any worse than what you've got going on at home? But another thing that really makes it quite disturbing is the bond between the lads. You know, we get to know a few of them, not obviously all of them, because there's 100 of them, but the ones that we get to know, the bond between them feels so real. And I read an interview where every Friday the actors would go out to like Dairy Queen and get some ice cream together, because obviously they're filming it all outside on the road. It's scorching hot. So, and that kind of stuff really translates to the screen. Their relationship and their dynamic feels so real, and you kind of get swept up in it, which is really, really nice. And it works so well. But it's not a spoiler to say that a lot of these boys do die. That's kind of the name of the game. That's literally the whole point where they're there. They know that there is a risk of dying. And there's a few that really got to me. There's one where I was tearing up a little bit, and some of it has really stayed with me after I left the screening. And I remember coming home and I was like, I can't believe what I've just seen. Like, there's been some really great films this year. You've got Sinners, Weapons, 28 Years Later. I love that it's all pretty much horror and these quite disturbing films. And The Long Walk, absolutely up there, straight into the top 5 of the year for me. And I love how kind of mainstream this year's best films are. We're just getting into kind of the film festival season where you start getting all the Oscar contenders. But I love that so far, every film that I've really loved this year has been quite extreme, scary, kind of vicious almost. And The Long Walk might be really up there as one of the most thrilling but also disturbing films that I've seen this year. And that's probably the highest compliment that I can give it. It was published in 1979, and it doesn't specify a setting. It's a very analog kind of world, but it's not set in a specific year because it is this alternative version of the United States. So it has that timelessness to it. It could be set now quite easily. You know, there's no iPhones or anything, but it could just be our own world. It does feel like dangerously close to something that we might be heading towards, this kind of like financial ruin, and where the class differences are even worse. So I think that's another reason why it kind of hit quite hard. But apart from that, there's that same feeling as like Never Let Me Go, which is also based on a book, starred Andrew Garfield, Carey Mulligan, and Keira Knightley. You know, it feels like it could be now. And that, I think, is always something that will make that film last for such a long time. But another film that I'm sure you're already thinking about is The Hunger Games. Francis Lawrence directed every film since the first one. That's the only one he didn't do. He's also directing the one that's coming up, Sunrise on the Reaping. And those films, because they're aimed at a younger audience, you have to give the idea and the sense of violence, but you can't actually show it because you need that age rating to be quite low. And Francis Lawrence has been really good at doing that, to kind of use sound and kind of turn the camera away and show a lot of like reactions rather than the violence itself. But here, he gets to go all out, like just do the weirdest, most horrible stuff, again, with very young people. I mean, now that I say it out loud, like, should we be concerned for him? Is he okay? But yeah, he gets to do probably a lot of things that he would like to do maybe with the Hunger Games, or what he's kind of imagining is happening in the scenes where he can't show it. Here is just, you see a lot of injury detail, and obviously, even if people aren't dying, the fact that you are walking for hundreds of miles without a pause, you know, it doesn't matter if you injure yourself, it doesn't matter if you have a little stone in your shoe. If you stop, you're done. They will give you like a warning, a couple of warnings. And if you can't get up, if you can't continue, you're done. And it's not like, okay, go back home. You're getting a bullet. And that alone is quite cruel. But the fact that we are seeing all of that, it's an experience for sure. But this is very much one of my favorite films of the year. Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson are absolutely incredible. I think David Johnson was very much the standout for me. Cooper Hoffman, very good, very kind of like our eyes and ears into the story. But I think his character Ray is maybe a little bit bland. It's not so much his fault. I think it's just how the character is, just kind of naturally. Whereas I thought David Johnson, he's quickly becoming one of the most talented and charismatic actors of his generation. Like we've seen in Right Lane, we've seen in Alien Romulus, and now in this. So I'm really excited to see where he goes next and what he does. But the entire cast, there are no weak links. I think only Mark Hamill was kind of maybe out of place. His turn is quite kind of out there. It's a bit too extreme when otherwise the film clearly strives for something very real and something realistic. And he's the only thing that didn't really work for me. It's a very small role. He doesn't actually have that much to do, which I think it kind of makes it worse. So that when he is on screen and he just kind of like growls at these kids or yells at them, it's just a bit too much. I absolutely love this film. Like I said, the biggest surprise of the year so far for me. And it's one of those films that as soon as I left the cinema, I was dying to watch it again. And I think that's always the sign of a film that will stay with you, that you immediately want to watch it and relive it, even when it's something this grim and depressing. But that's it from me this time. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe on this channel. We have loads of really cool bits coming up, interviews, behind the scene film stories, all kinds of good stuff, and you don't want to miss any of those. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.